So this will be just a very small peek of what you can do. Graph Builder is one of the most complicated platforms in JMP in terms of how the report structure is. And some of the stuff here is generic for other JMP platforms also. So it's not strictly for Graph Builder. First thing, improving JMP created script. So if I have an enhanced log enabled, I can do it from here. Let's just run table script. If I close this, you will get the report snapshot script. So it will look, basically this part is the JMP that JMP will create to you. And if you copy from the copy to clipboard, it's a bit cleaner version. Looks like this. How you would clean this or improve this, remove unnecessary comment. You don't need this. It's obvious what's going on. Add references, so refer DT or whatever is your variable where you have the table, and then capture the reference back. You never know if you need this, so I generally always capture these, even if I don't need them. So I have them, so I don't have to go back and try to find it. And then one extra note, sometimes might not be that important in Graph Builder, but it can be very important in distribution and so on, because users can change their preferences and they can affect how your reports look like, and they can have very big impact. So they can have auto fits and so on enabled. You can have this ignore platform preferences, and this will basically ignore the changes that have been made to preferences. And depending how you're scripting, there's lots of stuff behind this script that is utilizing the preferences, like the log scales and so on. They're not visible here, but they have the default values enabled. Then a bit more to scripting, how to have replacing one single column in a script using a variable. I always use names for my columns. This is not the only way to do it, but I have found that this is the most flexible one, the most robust one, but you have to know how to modify this string into references if you need it. So in this case, I just have it here. Group call is my variable where I store my column name. If I run it, it won't work because it cannot understand the string. So we have multiple options. We have eval, we can evaluate it. Usually this is the simplest way I would start with. In this case, it will work. Emmanuel did show the column. And then sometimes you might want to do something more complicated and build the expression. My preferred method is usually using eval expression. So here, if I run this, you can see that this complicated thing inside page has been replaced with the reference to age column. You can also use substitute to build the same thing here. And you can combine this immediately with eval here, or you can run it separately. So now it will execute the expression. If I want to change the group column, this won't work because the group column has already been, it's already inside here. So if you want to have even more dynamic options, you can build this as an expression. So now the group column is here as this complicated thing. Now if I evaluate it and change my group column and now to sex, it will change it. And you can have functions and so on. And just to demonstrate that Graph Builder is a complicated platform, this is very simple, one of the simplest Graph Builders you could have. But if we check the properties, it has, and this can be a bit annoying to use. Let's see how it works here. So if I click, for example, here, you will very quickly see that there are lots of stuff. It explodes, box, 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 box. lots of different stuff here. You can check the tree structure. Lots of different elements here. And same for if you check the XML. This is also a very complicated one. Lots of information. And one thing with Graph Builder is that you might not be able to get, you don't have access to everything here. For example, getting these group values, ages here, is not that simple in Graph Builder. They are stored in Graph Builder group box. You can try to hopefully, okay, this most likely font is too small. Okay, here. One way to check where they are stored. Then I get reference there. I can also verify that it's correct by using the select. If I check the XML for, you can try to figure out the values. For example, have it here, right, get what type of things you can send there. You can try with show properties. And see what you have. Maybe there might be something you can get the values from, but not all of these Graph Builder things, at least didn't have earlier. I'm not sure if the same situation in Jump 18. And if one example, I use get XML. The values are here, but this can be very difficult to parse because they are all together. So you would have to go back to the data table and check them from here. So what you have to do with these, sometimes with these, is to go back to data table and get the values from here. But with this, be careful. For example, with the value order, because these do depend on the value order. They can depend on order by here. So it can get a bit complicated. If it's just a value order, summarize, for example, does comply with it. But with the associative array, for example, it doesn't because it does reorder it. Same deal with summary. With summary, it will keep the same data type and it will also have the correct order. Then let's say you want to have some sort of generic way of manipulating your Graph Builder. How to find, if I have a report now, I don't have reference to, let's make this empty. So I don't have a reference to this one. So how can I find it? In this case, I will just look for it from the current report, but I could have get window list, loop over all of the windows and so on. But in this case, I will just use current report. Let's go back a little bit to the XML example. So I will have to run this. I think this was introduced in Jump 17, this help key. This is very powerful property in XML. This is you can in fairly robust manner find this outline box, even if this title was changed. Oops, I closed. Let's go back here. Even if this title was changed, the help key is still the same, but the title is changed. The text value is different. So you can use that to find this outline box. So outline box and then define this XPath query. I won't cover it in that detail. But you're looking for help key attribute which has this text. I have it. It returns a list. Then you can send get scriptable object to outline box. We can check that it's an outline box. And now we have Graph Builder, basically a reference to this Graph Builder platform here. And then if you want to have more, and then I could start sending messages to here. Let's see size. I would have to use the first one. So now I have access to it. So this can be used to create some type of tools, for example. And for a fuller example, you can check for the outline box with the help key Graph Builder. If it's an empty list, this could be moved here. If it's an empty list, throw an error and then continue after that. And even if I close the previous one, this should still work. So I get the reference, it's a list. I just want the first one. If I have I have a new window with multiple graph builders, I would get access to all of them. So that's why I use this. It's easier to handle usually. And then you can start scripting with the graph builder reference again. For example, get the data table reference back and start working for that. Then changing paths in graph builder. Let's clean these up. Some things, very simple ones, for example, changing the title. And of course, you can start with this, modify them from here. Bit easier to find out names. And then check the script. You can modify them from here. I don't usually like to do it from here because I don't feel like that they are that robust. But this can give an idea what you can do. Set title. Maybe gives some sort of idea. There is some sort of graph title, X title, Y title. I would say some of these are based on what you know. So what is title in Graph Builder? I would say it's this, but it's not. It's the outline box. Is this maybe the subtitle? No, subtitle is below it. And this doesn't even change the. So you could use this script we have here. Utilize this graph title. We can copy this. Or what I usually do is I use XPath and find the correct text edit box. It's basically this element here. And I know that it's the first one. So I can set it with like this. And you can also use report subscripting if you wish to. But this is easier method. I'm not just used to using it, and I not like really the dispatch. This is exactly the same thing you can see from here, or mostly, let's say, mostly same. So it's this part here. You can send this dispatch message to Graph Builder. And in similar manner, yeah, okay, I have examples here. Then axis boxes, different table, so here. And then there is scale box. I don't use those that commonly, but I think it was added at some point in Jump. I usually use axis box because I have used it always. Changing the titles, you can use similar Graph Builder title box, text edit box method, but this is most likely way easier. Just send these dispatch messages with these values here. So these do give some sort of idea. Display element. I wouldn't say this. I would say this is a string, not a display element, but it is what it is. And then figuring out what reference indices your axis boxes have. One fairly simple way is to select them. So I could get all of them, demo here, select. So I have a page. So this is the first one, okay? But maybe this is the second x-axis. No, it's y-axis. And this is second x-axis. So these can be very complicated. And you have to learn how to navigate this. I like, again, using XPath, and the reason being is that I can get references to all of the axis boxes in a list. Now, if I want to get just the y-axis, I can use remove from and remove the second index, like we saw here, from the list of axis boxes. Remove from does return a list of removed elements, but I just want the first one because this basically has hidden one here. I can leave it here. So now I have the y-axis here. We can do the select and see it is that one. And then what we are left with here is just the x-axis, all the x-axes. And now we can change, for example, min-max values, y-axis. We can send same message to all of the x-axis here. One thing to note here is that when you have categorical variable on x-axis or y-axis, the indexes can be very, even if this was 1, 2, 3 or so and so on, or 10, 20, they are not the real numbers. They have index behind them. And this is not always the same between some platforms. I think variability chart has very weird indexing compared to Graph Builder, but you can check it from here. Double click. This is basically the value, and this is just a label for it. So these are the indices you have, and with these you can work. So if I want to give some extra space here, I don't send any ABS min F or anything like that. If I send minimum 1, it will scale it back because this is index 0. But if I want extra space, -1 and extra 1, basically is that how you can get some extra space here. But this is, to my knowledge, somewhat platform dependent, but you can check them with this. And when you start having multiple x-axis like overlaid, then it gets, again, more complicated. And this can be also seen from here as you modify these and then save script to clipboard. The messages, it's a bit hidden how they are here, but you can send these basically here. And you can combine them like I did earlier there. Oops, let's leave that there. And you can also do it from here. So let's see if axis box, you can see more messages from scripting index. Close this. Then frame boxes. Frame boxes are basically what all of these storing different type of graphics. This is copy pasted. So now you could maybe think that you have just one frame box, but no, you have 6. Sometimes this can, it's very annoying that they are all separate, but it also has its useful features. So I'll start just working with the first one for now. But here again, we just have one single y-axis. So if I set this, it works in this case. But in some cases, there might be issues where it doesn't work with one. It will continue to next ones. But not an issue with this. If you use variables to store the values here, for example, you have specification limits and you want to set them like this. Let's run this first. So if we go here and check this one, this is a pretty nice way to check what you have here. Ref, Jump might know what it is or not. This one is much nicer set. This won't change. This might change. So let's set this as 1. Now the ref has changed. It's not updated yet, but when you do basically anything or rerun this or anything, it will update. I can select something from here. It will update. Graphic scripts do trigger quite a lot. And I can run reshow and it will update. One way to avoid this is to use evaluate. You can evaluate it. So now if we go here and check, now it's not ref y, it's 1. And even if I change it ref y to 0 and run reshow, it stays the same. And then a bit more complicated example. This, I think, let me clear these. So I have just the index 1 to 7 numbers, and I add edge lines to second frame box. Now they're here. I can run reshow. It does work. You might want to use for each. At least I always tell to you say that use that one. But this is one place where you can have issues if you are using that one. This will work once. Basically, you can see it from here. You don't know what this walls information is not here. It's just in your script window. And basically in Graph Builder knows it once. If I use for each, I will get an error. And this is because for each works in a local scope. It doesn't have access to these in similar manner. And again, how to avoid this? You can evaluate this. You can save the value basically by evaluating it before this loop. Now I have this myvals that does have those values stored. Then segments. These are also in most of the jump platforms do have, when you have graphs, different types of segments. So we have these message find segs. It finds all the segments here. In this case, marker and bar. If you're not sure what you have, you can send class name function message to these segments, and then you will see marker seg and bar segment. Then, if you want to get a reference to these, find seg is one way, and then ID index. So now I have reference to marker segments. Some of these have very powerful functions. What you can do, for example, I don't need to go back to data table and try to figure out what is X and Y. I can get the values with this. Get X values, get Y values. And these might be a bit different between platforms. For example, get row numbers doesn't work here, but I think it works in control chart builder or something. You can find coordinates for single points, more information about what type of markers you have, and so on. You can check this again from what you might have available from scripting index. So here we have somewhere, for example, these two. And then what you can do with this, for example, in Jump 18, there is a bug with interactive HTML that the area chart looks different in Jump and in HTML. I don't have that example here, but what I did, I plotted myself using these segments. That's a workaround, and it works. But here, for example, I draw a line between all of these points, just using these coordinates I have here. They are not related to the data basically in any way. These are just the points we have. And we can also check the script for that. So line using those. And you can test what happens yourself. What happens if I don't have this rank thing here? I'm basically reordering these based on the x-axis, so I can get them like this. Then dynamically building graph builder, or what you can do basically, easiest way, if these work for you, are add variables and add elements. So for example, I want to add the wrap variable here. So you can send this add variable, give the column, and then the role. Now it has been added. You can remove them. Some of these can be a bit finicky documentation. These definitely don't have the best documentation. I use how I learned these, or try to learn them. I use them. I just try and figure out what works. I can run this multiple times. It will always remove something. And then I can add this back. And you can see that I never defined when I ran these. Let's clear it. I never told Jump that use points. Jump does it itself. Sometimes useful, but you have to remember that it's doing that. You might have to modify them in a bit more robust manner sometimes. And just an example, you can also define position, so it will send it to the same axis and not just create separate one. Then add element, you can define, basically I just want to add line of fit and then have some sort of indexes. You can from here, X and Y position. They are related to the jump to these, but it's not easy to understand, at least in my opinion. I just try them. And then to remove element, it's the same idea. X, Y, and then you have this I, which just not, it's not even listed here what it is. So now it removed these from here. But trying this out is the easiest way to learn how they work. And when you do, I think I can do it from here. Let's see. When you do the modifications, check the script. You can see the indices here, what happens, and you can also use this to see it a bit faster. So you can learn by checking how the script looks like. Let's use this as an example for this. So let's remove this and get the script. So I have no variables, but I have points here. Now if I add one here, I get points added and so on. I still have bar. If I add second one, I still have bar, but now it's working properly and so on. Just trying to figure out what jump is doing can help. And when you understand this a bit better, you can use these in a manner that you let jump take care of some stuff. You don't have to define everything every time. So now an example that we wish to build a graph builder based on user inputs, for example, from user interface. How I usually do this is I check how the jump created scripts look like. So in this case, we want to have graph builder with one x-axis, but we can have multiple y-axes, or they can be in the same y-axis with just different columns. So I create graph builder here, get the script. Then, okay, if user can have multiple y-axis, same deal, create graph builder, copy script. It looks like this. And then if we have separate axis like this, now I have different scripts created by jump, and I can start figuring out how I can build these in dynamic manner. And I have few examples how you can do this. If you can utilize the add variable and add element, most likely it's easier. Let's close this. So first example, let's remove this one from here so it's easier to see what's going on. But in application, I would hide it first from user because it's not ready, and when it's ready, I would show it. So create initial graph builder with no y-axis at all. These we get from our user interface, which we don't have here. So 3 columns. We loop over these, and note again, I'm using strings. These are not the references. So I have to build them in this expression name, expression as column manner. I loop over them. I use add variable to add them to row Y. And now they have been added here in separate y-axis. And one reason why this works and it's this simple is that jump does, in my case, by default use the points. If I want to have bar charts, I would have to add elements also. Then for same y-axis, similar idea. I have some sort of graph builder columns, and here I have one extra thing basically added, position. And now they are in the same y-axis. I don't have the example for this method of using add element, I think. Yeah, I don't, but I can maybe create one. I think I had a link somewhere. Yeah, here. This is older post, but I think this still should work as an example. If it doesn't, comment in the community and I can create one. But this is from Xan from 2015. Then other method of building graph builders is building it with true expressions. We still have the same basic idea. We have something we want to build and jump has built it for us. So it has to look something like this. Sorry, I think here Xan uses this method, not that elements. Yeah, so I can create that element example. Let's move this back here. I can create that example and add it to this document. So in this case, you have to build it a bit different way. So we have variables because this is the, let's see if we can, not this way. So on the left, we will have what we want to have, and on the right, basically what we try to build, or we are trying to build it. If I can find it. Okay, here. So what is changing is this variables part. Compare this and this. We have more and more y arguments basically here. So we have express of variables. We can fill in what we can. Okay, in this case, we also add the line. We want them to be lines. So this is a bit different, the script. I don't have, okay, sorry, I have it here. So we want to have it look like this, and this is the script. So we can hide that. Oops. Scroll down here. So what we want to do is variables is changing, and this line y1, y2, y3, and we have to build them into expressions. Variables x site, basically this first one. This has been added already for us, but we have to build the rest. Same deal for lines. And this you can check how it works, but basically I just create an expression of this, add it to this variables one and so on. We can add, I think this should work if I add them like this here. So you can see, sorry, this, what they look like. So I have built them, but I don't have, for example, okay, I do have the position, but I don't have legend here added. It's missing. You can add it, for example, at this point, you could add the legend in similar manner, but you don't always need it. Jump can sometimes take care of them. Then after we have built these, you will have to build the rest of the graph builder expression. And for this, I usually use eval substitute. It's easier, in my opinion, to build it in this manner. And you can check it from here, basically what it does. And this is nice way with these, that if you don't run the eval, you can see the expression behind what is going to be executed. So it looks like this. Now, if I run with this, it will create the graph. It's a bit looks different because I have more columns than in the example I had here. I have 2 extra columns, NPN 4 and 5. And we can demonstrate that by going here, removing these. And then I rerun this building of the graph. And there are lots of small and some bigger tricks related to this, how you can rely on jump building something, and sometimes you cannot rely on jump. And the documentation, like I said, can be a bit bad for add elements, but basically this documentation you have, check graph builder and graph builder box from here. They do have some examples, and then, for example, take this one and play around with these indexes. You made index error. Sometimes it works, but it's basically learning by trying type of deal with these. Then a few things related how to manipulate graph builder. So changing summary statistic from here, you can use this update element. Again, indices, how to figure out. In this case, we would change this to mean. And it changed also error interval to range. But sometimes I think you might want, there might be reasons for you to utilize this user interface directly. And you can do it. I usually do it again with XPath. If you're not sure what to find, use get XML and figure out basically the element you are looking for. This is the first combo box I know in this case, so I can check the items here if I want to. Second one is the n, so this should change to n, and it does, and it gets also updated. And if I were to make it a bit more robust, I can check, for example, where the mean is and then set that reference. So if we check what this is, it will return 3, and so it is third one here, and now it will set it to mean. And there's not enough time to cover this in fully. So one of the most common questions in JMP community is how to set reference lines to different graphs. In Graph Builder, I would say always try to utilize columns if possible. It depends on your data if this is possible or not. But in this simple example, we have references stored in a table in our script as an associative array. I add new columns here. And easiest way, I just create a new graph. Now I have the limits. These work with local data filter and so on. The point here is that you have to disable these from the graphs you want to show. So in this case, disable the low and high from the points. And from the line, just leave these. If I leave age here, it will not go to end. If I have height here, I will have extra line mean for that one. If you still want to have the line for mean, add a second line and then disable, you can leave that there, but disable these from here. This is the easiest method to add lines in this type of data. Sometimes spec limits work, but it depends on if it's a tall format data or wide format data. But these are the easiest methods. I will just show the demonstrations here because I don't have time to cover this. You can use reference lines. So I can use reference lines to add them here. We have multiple frame boxes and y-axis, so you have to set them separately. Then you can use graphic scripts. This can get very complicated very quickly if you have multiple frame groups and so on. But you can check the example here. It starts basically from here and it runs here and it has all sorts of stuff here. And the scripts look like this. These do have their good and bad things, these different methods. One thing if you learn how to use this, especially this one, is that you can use them with variable charts. And there are quite a few places where this has been asked how they can be set. And I might have answered a few of these. See how long this takes. Okay, this might have changed in JMP 18, so this might not work anymore properly. Okay, not the best example. But they do have examples how this can be set. But you basically have to calculate how many x-axes you have and groups and so on. And lots of stuff we didn't cover here. If you want to cover some of these local data filters, column switch, or Hubble labels, and whatever stuff there is still left, you can send feedback that you want to see them or comment in the community. And you will get this my material when the video is posted. I will also add this material. That's my part. Thanks.
Thank you. Just for the searching through all the access to add lines, it's like if you wrap the text, you can just like unwrap it, do it on one axis, then wrap it again, and then it will add it to all whatever is there. So you don't need to search through all the boxes.
Yeah, that is one way to do it.
Yeah, but the picture, the graph builder, of course, then flickers. So you have to stop it, do the changes, and then update it again.
Okay, that's probably us wrapped up today. Thanks.